Let's start with the federal grand jury, though, the indictment of President Biden's son, Hunter, on 3 felony gun charges, setting the stage for a possible criminal trial during the 2024 campaign. 2 counts are tied to Hunter Biden allegedly completing a form indicating he was not using illegal drugs when he purchased a Colt Cobra revolver in October of 2018. The 3rd count alleges he possessed a firearm while using a narcotic. 2 of the counts carry maximum prison sentences of 10 years, while the 3rd has a maximum of 5 years. Each count also carries a maximum fine of $250,000. The historic indictment against the son of a sitting president comes after a plea deal fell apart earlier this year and after House Republicans launched an impeachment inquiry seeking bank records and other documents from the president and his son. The case is being overseen by Special Counsel David Weiss, who also headed the investigation. Weiss is a Trump appointee who was kept on as U.S. Attorney for Delaware because of the sensitive and unique nature of the investigation. Attorney General Merrick Garland named Weiss as special counsel in August, just as negotiation over the tax and gun charges collapsed. Lead counsel for Hunter Biden, Abby Lowell, issued a statement that reads in part, quote, "We believe these charges are barred by the agreement the prosecutors made with Mr. Biden, the recent rulings by several federal courts that this statute is unconstitutional, and the facts that he did not violate the law, and we plan to demonstrate all of that in court." The White House referred requests for comment to the Justice Department and to Hunter Biden's legal team. Willie?
And joining us now, former FBI General Counsel, now an NBC News legal analyst, Andrew Weissmann. Andrew, good morning. So we have to draw some lines here because so much has been conflated by opponents of President Biden. These 3 charges are specifically related to Hunter Biden buying a firearm. And the charges are that he lied on the form, filling out the application for the gun, that he wasn't using narcotics, and then that he possessed a gun while he was using narcotics. So what is the significance of this case, if you see any, to the larger investigations around Hunter Biden that Republicans say may be connected to Joe Biden, although there's no evidence presented of that yet?
So there's no connection at all. I mean, this is an alleged crime related to the purchase of a single gun. There's nothing about Burisma, there's nothing about Ukraine, there's nothing about foreign business. This is simply a purchase of a gun. I do expect that we're going to see the federal tax charges that were initially sought to be brought in Delaware, that we're going to see those as soon as today, possibly. It'll be interesting to see what they say the source of the income was. There may be a connection, but it's important to note that to date, there's simply no evidence that's come up with respect to the current president having any role in terms of any sort of illegality regarding those tax charges, but it remains to be seen what gets alleged by the special counsel here.
Andrew, it's Jonathan. Let's get your assessment of this charge in terms of how common or it is that someone would be actually charged with this. And then secondly, even if we're adding tax charges to it, as you suspect may happen, sketch us out for us the likelihood of this going to trial, and if so, when?
Sure. The way I look at this is when the former president was charged in the 4 separate indictments that exist, a legitimate question that people could and did ask was whether he was being treated comparably to other people. In other words, is there a precedent for other people being charged in like circumstances? And in the January 6th case, it was an easy call because scores and scores of people have been charged for doing less than the former president. The same thing in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. So that you could look to how other people had been charged and say this is consonant and consistent with the rule of law. I do not think that is possible in the Hunter Biden case to say that. This really strikes me as an abuse of the the enormous discretion that a prosecutor has in deciding not just can you bring a charge, because here you obviously can do it, there is probable cause that a grand jury found, but should you be bringing the charges? And here, the first two charges are completely duplicative. And as you mentioned, it's just not very common to see this type of charge. In my 21 years as a prosecutor, I never saw this charge. And I think that's common here.
Jen Psaki, given what Andrew just said, I think this question about the politics of it, and you can take a question to him as well, but first just wanted to hear your thoughts politically. This is the indictment of the president's son. It's serious. And I was gauging reaction on Capitol Hill, and you had major players in the Democratic Party, Jamie Raskin and others, Eric Swalwell, all of them respecting the law. There was no screeching and crying about the weaponization of the judicial system. There was, this is sad. We have to follow the law. We have to see what happens. If someone does something wrong, they have to be brought to account. This isn't the president. Clear facts.
You're saying they acted like people who actually respect American democracy?
Correct. Here's Jamie Raskin.
You're saying they weren't like fascists who, when their leaders were charged with something, they tried to tear down the jury system. They tried to tear down the FBI. They're trying to. So they weren't like Republicans who were playing fascists, that we were going to tear down the FBI, the Justice Department, and even attack the jury system if they didn't like.
And really, if I may, how can those Republicans say everything they've been saying, which has been ridiculous every step of the way, but then say this? And I gauged Republican reaction and right-wing television, and they were acting, well, the hypocrisy is boundless. Here's Jamie Raskin, and then we'll get to Jen Psaki on the other side.
I don't think people should applaud the system when it works for Hunter Biden, but then try to tear the system down when it works for Donald Trump. I mean, both of them have been indicted on various charges. The presumption of innocence operates for both of them. Due process rights operate for both of them. And, we shouldn't take delight in other people's misfortunes, but we have to have a rule of law.
I mean, we have to have a rule of law, Mika and Joe. It's such a relief to hear that from people, including when it's about, as you just said, somebody who is very close to the president. I mean, first and foremost, the politics of this are a little hard to predict. But right now you have the president's son, somebody he loves deeply, somebody who has very publicly struggled with drug addiction, now facing these charges, which are serious. And I'll let Andrew do a contemplation of the legality and the process and all of that, which I know a lot of us have questions on. What is tricky to watch here, and what I think we all will be watching, is what do Republicans do with this on the Hill as it relates to their impeachment process baloney efforts, right?